Welcome to Women in Power Active, an initiative started by You Are Sportswear to empower women to find their own active adventure. I'm your host, Jacalyn Gross. Today, we're thrilled to introduce Khai Bhagwandin. With a background in holistic health and wellness medicine, paired with her passion for outdoor action sports, Khai seamlessly integrates her expertise to offer a distinctive experience for her clients. Not only advocates for health, but also champions the BIPOC community, Khai is creating fresh tracks in the snowboarding and skiing space, shredding stereotypes, and carving out space for inclusivity and empowerment on the slopes. Join us as we strap it up and drop into Khai's journey, her innovative approaches to wellness, and her efforts to create a more diverse and equitable outdoor sports community. Khai, welcome, and thank you so much for being here. I really am so excited to talk to you.
Thanks for having me. That was quite the introduction.
Of course. So I always start with this, but we have to start at the beginning. How did you become an active person? Were you inspired by somebody and somebody in your friend group or your family? Like, how did you start being active?
So, as far as snowboarding goes, it was definitely friends that introduced me to the sport. But I think just in general, my parents are hippies, and we kind of grew up like kind of off grid in a way, like in the woods, and we grew a lot of our own food, and we didn't have TV until I was like a teenager. And Me and my older brother, Jai, so it was Jai and Kai, and we were just really close, and we didn't, we entertained ourselves in the woods and in the wilderness, and it was always like, if we're being annoying, our parents would just say, go run around the house a few times, go outside. Like we were homeschooled until about middle school. So it was just like a lot of just learning from the land and just being outside. So I think that really influenced me a lot. And I did like a little bit of sports growing up, but not really like any like team sports or anything. I think also just being a person of color in a very small town, like me, my brother, and my dad were, I'm mixed, so my mom's white too. So it's like we were the only brown people. So um, there was always kind of this like trying to kind of fit in a place where we didn't really fit in, which then for me showed up as becoming friends with like the skaters and the punks and the kind of the people who really accepted me for who I was. I was really like still am really into punk rock, and it was all about like music and skateboarding. That pathway kind of then eventually brought me into snowboarding. Um, I lived kind of out by White Pass was the closest place. And I had a friend who let me borrow her snowboard, and I went up with another friend, and it probably took me an hour to get down the one run. And then after that, it was like, then I started linking turns, and then it just became something that like um, both me and my brother became just really obsessed with. He ended up living and working at Mount Hood, which I think for a lot of snowboarders, that's kind of like, a place where a lot of us start out just because they have a lot of camps, and they have, the whole summer as well. I never did the camps. They were always too expensive for me, but I was there as soon as I could drive myself. So 15 years old, driving my little Honda Civic. My mom would let me drive. It was 2 hours to government camp, and my brother lived there, so she would let me go and stay with him for the weekend. And that's where I really like fell in love with snowboarding. And it's funny because like once you have that experience where you just like have to do it every weekend, it becomes like just so integrated into your lifestyle. It's like every year since then, I've had a season pass somewhere. I've lived at mountains. I chose to go to college based on how close it was to a mountain. I went to Western and it's close to Mount Baker. So it's like, it really, I don't know. It just became such a big part of my life. And it's like just being active, being outside, and being in nature. It doesn't even really feel like it's a sport. It's just like a way of life.
Yeah, totally. And especially with your like sibling doing it as well. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like feels like family to you. Um,
Yeah, totally.
so you did you start out skateboarding before you got into snowboarding?
Yeah, I was never good at skateboarding,
Okay.
but you know, I would we had a skate park in our town, and that was kind of like after school, everyone would go to the skate park and just hang out, and I'd roll around and ride the mini ramp a little bit, but I never really got that good. I can do an ollie, but
Cool.
it hurts a lot more when you fall on pavement than it does on snow.
Did you feel like that kind of transferred at all, like making you a little bit more comfortable when you started snowboarding?
I think the fact that it's also a board, maybe, but as
Okay.
far as the skill goes, it's not super transferable. It's funny because like I've done a little bit of surfing too, and it's just like
Mhm.
I'm so bad at surfing, but I could snowboard really well. But it's like it's different. It's definitely different, and it's funny to say, but the closest thing to snowboarding, like that feeling of snowboarding, is actually mountain biking, like downhill mountain biking.
Okay.
Um, so it's not super transferable as far as like board sports, except maybe like just the confidence piece.
And then you also ski as well. Like you just fell in love with snowboarding, but you kind of like to ski, or like do you like to do both interchangeably?
No, I don't ski actually at
Oh,
all. I skied a little bit, like the first time I think I went skiing. My parents brought me skiing when I was like 6, so like did like a ski lesson. But then when I was going on my own, I was fully snowboard. I do split board though, so that I don't know if you maybe saw on my Instagram or something. It looked like I was skiing,
yeah.
but it's actually a split board. So
Oh,
I
okay.
do a lot of I do a lot of backcountry. So I'll
Mhm.
split boards basically just splits into skis. You tour up, and then you switch it back into a snowboard to come
Mhm.
back down.
Oh, cool. Do you enjoy that?
Yeah.
I hear mixed reviews on split boarding. People are really they're really against it or like love it. It seems like.
Yeah, I mean the uphill is definitely like a different type of fun, and I think most snowboarders aren't that type of person who
Mhm.
enjoy the uphill part. Um, and splitboarding is pretty new, so like the technology is not great. It's gotten a lot better, but it used to be like, the once you put the board back together, it's not like a very good snowboard to snowboard down. So um I actually, it depends on what I'm doing. Like I love split boarding because I have like a good split board that I can actually ride, but I also have um they're called rovers, and they're like an approach ski. So it's basically like a fancy snowshoe. And so if I'm not going like far distance, I'll actually use those so that I can bring my like good snowboard that I like to ride.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's I don't know, it's definitely a different kind of type of fun. But there's a lot of splitboard mountaineers and people that really, really love splitboarding.
Mhm.
Um, and I kind of find that those are the type of people that are maybe, wanting to do a big line or a big couloir, but they're not like really the same type of people that are like lapping the park or lapping, on a chairlift. And it's just a different style of riding, I guess.
I know I can't claim to know that much about snowboarding to be honest, so this is like very interesting to me. Um
Mm-hmm.
so like I know that you're pretty competitive. How did that start and like can you explain kind of the races and how they work?
Yeah. So, I do banked slaloms, which is kind of the equivalent of like a ski race, but for a
Mhm.
snowboarder. Um, it's you can kind of think like border cross, but just one person goes down at a time. So it's a timed kind of competition.
Mhm.
And it's like snowboarding is such a like a community based sport. Like it's all about having fun with your friends and like
Mhm.
building community and the bank slaloms I feel like are more of like an excuse just to get everyone together and like have an event. And then it's like, well, we're not ski racers. It's not like an exact science. The course is always like hand built or hand dug. So there can be like a lot of differences and in the snow and
Mhm.
the timing isn't always perfect. It's like it's not like an exact science. It's more of just like a bunch of snowboarders getting together, having a good time, and then it's like this is something to do. It does get competitive at times, but it's not as competitive as a lot of other sports, I would say. It's really about just like having community. And Mount Baker actually was the first mountain to have a competition for snowboarders. So when snowboarding first came about, there was like, skiers didn't like that. There's a lot of mountains that didn't let snowboarders ride on the hill. And they were kind of viewed as like these punk kids that are like crazy and drinking and like partying. And like, it took a long time for snowboarders to really become a thing that was accepted on the mountain. And so Mount Baker, the legendary bank slalom, has a lot of roots and history in like the beginning of snowboarding. And that's where I lived and had a season pass and went to college up at Western. So I did 10 seasons up there. And so that's how I started doing the bank slalom. They had a locals qualifier, and at first I was really nervous to do it, and there was like, a whole local crew that just didn't feel very welcoming, and they were kind of like the mean girl crew. And I just started doing it, and like every time I did it I got better, and people started recognizing me and started making friends and just started kind of creating and fostering a more like encouraging environment. And then bank slaloms got super popular, and you started seeing them pop up all over the place. So now I do probably like 5 bank slaloms a year, and kind of travel around the Northwest. And Snoqualmie Pass has one now. Mission Ridge, they've had the Bomber Bank Slalom for I think like over 10 years now. So yeah, it's just like a fun competition that's not super serious, but still just really fun to do. I did do the free ride qualifier series, but it was just too expensive to like really sustain.
Mhm.
A lot of the competitions, it's like unless you have a sponsor that's paying for all your entrance fees and stuff, and then the travel, and then it's like you have to take time off work. It's not a very sustainable lifestyle unless you are already wealthy
Mhm.
or you have someone supporting you. So yeah, so that's why I've never really pursued any other type of competitions, but the bank slaloms just feel really fun, and it's just a great way to get the community together too.
Yeah, that's awesome. And okay, so a competition, you said, can you explain that one more time, like what it looks like, the bank slalom?
Yeah, yeah. So it's a race with like
Mhm.
big S turns,
Okay.
with big banks. So
Mhm.
you can kind of think about like a skateboard bowl, but then it just like S's down into another bowl.
Mhm.
And every race is going to be different, even the same at the same place, because it depends on the snow. It depends on how they build it. There's some some bank slaloms that are a lot more like underground, and they are just like a lot harder, and they'll build in like jumps and like weird gaps, and like, there's always people like falling and flying off the course if they're going too fast. So then, yeah, basically there's a start gate. You drop in, it starts the timer. You go through as fast as you can, and then the timer stops when you go out the end of the race.
Yeah, that sounds really cool.
It can be really scary too, depending. It just depends. It all depends on the course and snowpack for the year, and like there's a lot of variables. But I find actually that I do better on the harder courses. Like if it's more of a survival competition, like I'll do really good. If it's like a really smooth, nice bank turn and you have to like really stay on your edge and have like a lot of control, I tend not to do as well on those. but if I have to like jump over something or like try and I don't know, if there's like some crazy ice chunk or something that's taking people out, like I'll usually always make it through that.
That's your kind of style.
Yeah, yeah. The wild courses I do better on.
Well, yeah. No wonder you like mountain biking too, because I feel like that same sort of like you have to just kind of deal with what's coming up in front of you and like keep moving and keep
Hmm.
turning and keep like changing how you're riding depending on the terrain.
Hmm. And that's snowboarding. It's like you have to be so present. And I think that's like why a lot of people really love skiing and snowboarding. It's like you have to be totally present. It's like kind of like a meditation in a way where you're just like what you have in front of you, you just got to keep like rolling with what's going on and stay really present. And yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Other than, it being really expensive, like there's other like accessibility issues. You started the Change Collective. Can you tell a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the Change Collective actually started out as a competition, a video competition.
Mhm.
The outerwear brand that I ride for, True Gear, um, they have this competition where you make a 5-minute video, and then the public can vote on it, and then you can win like $10,000 or whatever. So my story was really about like um, kind of showcasing BIPOC talent and um, creating. Someone once told me like there's like a token brown person at every mountain, and we just have to like find each other and like come together. Because skiing and snowboarding is a very, very white male dominated sport. And so, now it's changing a lot, which is awesome to see. But like through my entire like career, it's like I've been the only person that looks like me. Maybe you'll see one or two other people, but it's pretty rare. So it was really just about like creating that community within the community of snowboarding,
Mhm.
to really try to empower and just show that like we do belong here and that we are here, and like even though you don't see us around a lot, there's a lot of us who have been here for a long time. Like I started snowboarding 20 years ago, and it's like we are here. And especially after 2020, there was like this big like push to get more BIPOC athletes and more representation. And it was really because like being a brown person was trending, and it was like finally we're like something that's marketable for brands. And it really started. I actually was an ambassador for Burton Snowboards, and they had basically brought me on as like, they wanted to support marginalized communities. And I was doing a lot of activism at the time too, and they wanted like an activist, and they wanted to like tell my story and blah blah blah, all this stuff. Which it ended up being like a very performative program. And once we weren't trending as much anymore. That I mean, they never really did anything with us. So
Oh,
it was kind of just like, hey, we're doing this program, but
yeah.
then they weren't actually doing anything. It was like we were just a face on their website.
Mhm.
And so I kind of well, they had asked for my feedback, so I gave them honest feedback,
Mhm.
and they didn't like that very much. So I actually got cut from the team because,
Are you serious?
yeah, they said Burton was not ready for someone like me.
Oh, they wanted
Um,
activists and okay.
they wanted someone,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I was like, you wanted me because do you know what an activist
This
is?
is.
Like, I don't know. But yeah, apparently I offended someone.
Yeah.
Which I was always very like professional and nice with them, but whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Not that they
that
deserve
so
that,
that
but yeah, I'm sure you were. Yeah, it's
yeah,
fine.
yeah. So that kind of put a little fire under me to be like, hey, like, well, I made an Instagram post about it. And then I just had so many people reaching out to me. And like, it just made me realize that the community that I was looking for within Burton was already here. And
Mhm.
we have social media, like, we can find each other now. Like,
Yeah.
it's so that really motivated me to really just create like a community and a place for people, especially athletes of color, because a lot of the brands are like, oh, we need to focus on getting more people of color in the mountains, which is great for like people that are new and coming into the sport.
Mhm.
But then there's also like these athletes that have already been there and have been struggling and have never been like marketable for so long. And it's like we're here. There's tons of people of color who are really good at skiing and snowboarding already here.
Yeah.
I was also really inspired by there is an organization called Soy Sauce Nation, and it's a woman Nirvana and a guy AK who put it together, and it's an Asian snowboard community team basically, and they've done a couple events, and they're just so awesome, and the community just shows up, and it really shows you that like if you make people feel comfortable and like create this space, like they'll show up, and it's not that hard to do it right.
That's such a good point about the fact that there was already, people of color like that were really good athletes that were just not getting any attention. Support the people that are here and make sure that these athletes can have the opportunity to be able to, push themselves as hard as they can and like get into these like harder or more like elite races. Um
Mm-hmm.
Through the collective, are you supporting those athletes or how are you supporting those athletes?
Yeah, so right now it's very new
Mhm.
still, and we're basically it's a place to for athletes to support each other.
Okay.
So we have a few, and like anyone's obviously welcome. So it's eventually what we want to have is kind of an open source like resource list of like how do you make an athlete deck? How do you propose a project, put together a project and propose it to a brand? How do you how do you get training? Like what type of training and like cross training and stuff like that? Um, a lot of stuff that's been traditionally gate kept in the industry, like the people who are getting sponsorships, it's all about networking, and it's like who it's like, do you know the right person,
Mhm.
and how do you meet those people, and how do you get in, and how do you um you know how do you get past all these hurdles basically. And so by coming together and sharing that information, um and putting together trips so that we can, go do these things on our own, do our own photography and filming projects,
Mhm.
hopefully in with the hopes of like getting some funding from brands. But right now, basically we've done a couple like events and raffles, and just we have a GoFundMe, and we just crowdsource funding,
Mhm.
and then we use it to help athletes that maybe have, like, I have a couple sponsors, but they don't really have a lot of money.
Mhm.
So I get gear from them, but it's hard to, like, go on trips and do film projects and stuff like that, without money. So it's kind of a way to, raise our own funds. And then hopefully by creating something together, we can show brands that, like, this is important and you should be putting money into this because we're here and we're doing stuff and people like it. And when someone sees a person of color, and, like, when if I would have seen more people of color in the sport, like, I feel like I would have progressed a lot more. And even in my adulthood, when I did finally start seeing other women of color, that looked like me snowboarding, it was just like, it's hard to explain because you just don't really understand what that feels like until you feel it. And you're like, oh, I can do that.
Mhm.
It's like, it it really is like a mental thing. And I think, having other people be like, oh, they're doing that, I can do that, I belong here. And also, I think a big part of it too is just people, like, because it is such a white male dominated sport, it's like you do see a lot of racism in skiing and snowboarding still. And it's like, if you're a person of color, like, why would you, and especially a woman, why would you submit yourself to that world when, yeah, snowboarding looks fun and it's something that I want to try. And, I would want to do that, but that requires me to really put myself out there and subject myself to who knows what once you're out there. So it's like, building that community is so important because then you can be like, okay, I can go up with other people. And now, especially in Seattle, we have so many cool organizations like Edge Outdoors and the Service Board and, like, other really cool communities that are really, doing that type of work of getting people of color up on the mountain and creating those spaces for people to feel comfortable to go.
Kind of like more on like what you were talking about earlier and just like feeling like seeing representation in the sport. Like the only thing that I, as a white person, can kind of like equate that to is like body positivity and seeing that more so on like social media. Cause I really felt like my self-acceptance was like went way up the more I saw body positivity posting. And so it made me feel like fit in. It's okay. Other people look like this, like, um, kind of reinforcing that idea. So I can't imagine like being in a space, especially one that's so dominated by white men that, you would feel comfortable going into it, especially since it's a skill. And so, like,
Mhm.
as somebody who's like just starting out, you're already apprehensive about that. And then not knowing if you're going to be safe or if it's going to be okay for you to be there is just another layer that, like, a lot of people understandably so cannot like get over. So I think it's a huge thing
Mhm.
to like
Yeah.
show that there are people out there of color that are doing this and making those spaces where people are safe and included.
Mhm.
In the collective too, like you're doing not just like the snowboarding aspect of things, but you are also talking about wellness and health and you have a very interesting career in wellness and health, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm an acupuncturist.
Hmm.
I've been practicing for a little over 5 years now. Yeah, and it's awesome. It's my passion. Acupuncture is like a lot more than just acupuncture. So it's like herbal medicine, and I do a lot of cupping and gua sha and um, diet and lifestyle and just living very holistically healthy, based on Eastern medicine,
Hmm.
which is has very different values than Western medicine. Um, yeah, and my mom's also actually a massage therapist and herbalist as well. So I definitely had some influence there.
Oh, I wanted to talk a little bit about it too because like I've had like a lot of success for injury prevention and like injury treatment with acupuncture. I'm originally from Michigan and that like acupuncture was not a thing that I ever knew anything about until I got over to like Washington State. But um it was recommended to me and it really did help to like alleviate some of my I had some like lower it wasn't like a back thing, it was actually like a hamstring thing, but all connected. So it really did help that injury. And it was one of the other like positive things that I felt from that was like it was like the most relaxing space that I've ever been in. Like in that time of my life, I was like pretty stressed. And it was just like
Mhm.
one space that like felt like very comforting and like safe. And it was like I would almost like meditate while I was there. So I love acupuncture. I think it's really
Yeah,
a great
yeah, it is. It's so relaxing because it's
yeah.
like we always treat like the physical and the emotional at the same time
Mhm.
in Chinese medicine. Yeah, and I focus a lot on sports medicine, which is like I think just being an active person and like having experiencing a lot of injuries myself has been like very helpful in the way that I treat my patients too. I do actually see a lot of snowboarders and skiers and I'm always like, "Oh, are you goofy footed?" They're
Mhm.
like, "What? How do you go?" I'm like, "Well, I can tell."
Yep.
So yeah, it's I really love it. And it is, like you said, it's so great as a preventative medicine too. Um, it's like it's a lot easier to fix something or prevent something from happening than it is to fix something after the fact. But I also see a lot of people post surgery, especially the people around me in snowboarding, lots of knee injuries and lots of, you know, recovery from injuries too is it's just it just increases your healing time by so much. And acupuncture, like I kind of say I practice like more modern acupuncture where I'm doing injection therapies and a lot of like electro stimulation and like all kinds of stuff. Pretty much anything I'm allowed to do with my license, I like go for it.
Mhm.
It's super fun. And it's just nice to have like someone come in feeling a certain way and then leaving feeling better. And that's just something you don't really get from going to the doctor. Like you go in and they either tell you, "Oh, we can't do anything for you," or here's a list of medications or
Yes.
whatever. It's not like you can go in, get your treatment, and then
Mhm.
leave feeling better than you did when you got there.
Mhm. This is like something that like I get in this like on my soapbox about is that people like don't understand that sometimes like things are just like soft tissue issues. Like they're not necessarily like, oh, my knee hurts. Oh my gosh, I have to get like surgery or I have to, take medication all the time. Or like if you go to somebody who's like just PSA for acupuncturists, if you go to like an acupuncturist or massage therapist, they're gonna figure out like ways that can treat you differently than going to like a medical doctor because they're especially you being having like that athletic background too is like just another bonus. But like medical doctors are gonna try to like, yeah, potentially you're gonna have to get surgery, or they might not understand that if you just got a massage or if you just got acupuncture, then you would be, you'd be able to move your knee properly. You'd be able to do all the
Mm-hmm.
things that you were able to do. Um, I just get when I hate when people say like I have a bad whatever, I have a bad ankle, I have a bad knee, I have whatever. It's just like go get soft tissue work. Like go be an
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think
Yeah.
a lot of people just don't even know that it's
Yeah.
like an option. Like
Yes.
there's treatments like naturopathic and holistic treatments that I literally didn't even know about until I went to school for that. And then I was like, "Oh, you can do that." And it's like it's not normalized in our culture at
Right.
all.
Hmm.
It's just like this is the way you do it. This is the standard process. And I think especially now we're like the medical system is failing us.
Yep.
People are starting to be like,
Yep.
oh, okay, I need to do something. I can't get
Mhm.
into a doctor for 3 months. What am I going to do?
Yep.
And so now they're looking for more like preventative and naturopathic and acupuncture and stuff like that. And it's like the books I learned out of were written 3,000 years ago. So it's
Mhm.
like this stuff is the same, like, the, it works.
Yeah.
It hasn't changed.
The Change Collective. Do you like say like advise anybody on anything in that, like as far as acupuncture goes or health wise?
It's in a way it's connected, but it is
Mhm.
kind of like separate as well.
Yeah.
I think just like the overall collective healing and just, I and we kind of talk about this a lot in medicine. It's like, are you a doctor or are you a healer? Or it's like, there's kind of a difference there. And I
Mhm.
think, I am a healer, and whether it's in snowboarding or in my activism, or whatever I'm doing, I kind of always approach life from that kind of healer lens,
Mhm.
and uh, you know, having fun and feeling joy is so healing, and that's really what snowboarding is.
Mhm.
And then there's this piece of like people of color are constantly seeing themselves or people who look like them in the news and in the media as like, getting killed or, being genocided, or like there's always, or like starving, or like, you always see so much it's collective trauma. So there's this so much collective trauma just existing as a person of color. And so my approach to like the Change Collective is by showing us having fun and in this world, like enjoying life the way that we should,
Mhm.
in a way that's a collective healing. And so it's a way to kind of express ourselves and be part of the world and relate to the world in a way that's more healing for us, for each other, and for ourselves as well.
Kind of going back a little bit into snowboarding itself for you, is there anything that you're working towards for this year or just in general? Like, is there some, like maybe there's some trick that you're working towards, or are you actually going to compete at a big race coming up? Competition. I am a runner,
Yeah.
so I call everything races.
Yeah. Well, it is a
Yeah.
race.
Okay.
So yeah, so the big legendary bake slalom at Mount Baker was
Huh.
canceled this year because there wasn't enough snow.
Oh no.
And it's actually been a really bad snow year this year. So thanks, global warming.
Yep. That's great.
But yeah, but I think for me, actually, I'm in the true competition again with a
Hmm.
different group. And so we're working on doing some filming for that.
Hmm.
And then when that gets released I think in the fall, then it will be open to the public to vote. And so that will be kind of like the big push. And this
Hmm.
year, the winner gets $15,000.
Wow. Yeah.
So we're gonna,
Wow.
really, really trying to kind of build this story. It's actually a friend of mine story. I don't want to give it away too much, but
Okay.
it's about food.
Okay.
And it's about kind of like it's actually me and a bunch of my Filipino friends,
Hmm.
and it's really about like telling the story of like, when we were kids and we had like our food, our cultural food,
Hmm.
and always kind of getting looked at or like being like, that looks gross, and being made fun of and stuff. And
Hmm.
now it's like it's such a big part of like who we are is food, and kind of using food as a vehicle to show who we are. And then obviously there's some snowboarding in there too because
Hmm.
it's a snowboarding film.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the next big project. I am going to go on a trip with some of the Change Collective people, and we're gonna go to Alaska. So
Oh.
that'll be fun. I've never been to Alaska before. Um, And then, yeah, personally, I think it's just like it's been hard this season just because there's not a lot of snow and there's like all this stuff that I wanted to do
Mhm.
that's just not really going to happen. But yeah, those are kind of my two big things is the Change Collective trip and then just working on filming and which is hard. Filming is so hard.
Yeah.
Luckily, we have a really good filmer, but it's just like,
Yeah.
you go up there and you just have to perform and hopefully you get a good shot. And
Mhm.
then, you know, it's this competition is it's like we get a certain amount of time to film into. So it's like we have to get these shots
Oh
within
my
like a
gosh.
couple months. So it's like
So
it's a lot of
stressful.
fun, but it's also
Yeah.
a little a little bit stressful. And it's like, a lot of waiting around and it's not filming is different than snowboarding because like when you go snowboarding, you're just taking laps and you're having fun and doing all this stuff. Filming, it's like you hike something, you sit there while the camera gets set up, you wait, then you just have to go and do your trick. And then it's just kind of like that kind of hurry up and wait. And then, okay, go. Like now do something cool. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun just because like our crew is really fun and it's a
Mhm.
great way to just like be in nature and have fun and kind of push ourselves a little bit too. I'm definitely wanting to progress as well. And that's kind of like why I've started the Change Collective is to like, so we can push each other and, get better, build our skills and feel more confident in the mountains. Cause when you're around people you feel confident with, then you are able to like try new stuff and like you just snowboard better. So,
Yes. I mean, I've like talked to so many people and like that kind of resonated with me too because like if you have a positive space where everybody wants you to succeed, it's so much easier to like let yourself succeed because I think a lot of times we kind of hold ourselves back in many
mm-hmm.
instances and like yes, the people that are surrounding you it's so important to that they're the right people that want you to do well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And like, yeah, it's like there's this stereotype that like people of color and like women too are just like not good at sports or
Yes.
not good at snowboarding
Yeah.
specifically. And so it's like, you don't want to fall or mess up or try something new because you're probably going to fall. And like, that's a big part of it. It's like falling and getting back up.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm super proud of like the community that we've built, especially at Snoqualmie Pass. There's like this group chat with like I think like 50 women in it or something. It's just like unbelievable, and everyone is just cheering each other on and
Mhm.
encouraging each other, and it's just like that's not how snowboarding was when I first started
Yeah.
at all.
And so are those women just like around the nation or like are they just in Washington?
No, just all local, like
Oh, that's
all
so
local. That's
cool.
like our local crew. I'm like, it's always the chat's always blowing up, and I'm like, dang, how do we
Yeah.
have so many cool women here? It's awesome. It's really cool to see, and um, yeah, there's definitely been a big shift of like, oh, are you cool enough to like ride here? Are you like, don't hit our jump? That kind of
Yeah.
like, really gatekeepy, like
Hmm.
mean attitude. And now it's like everyone's just like, you can really see the difference, especially in the last few years of like how people are just treat each other differently and that's all because of like us building that community and like other, reaching out to each other. And I don't know, social media can be shitty
Yeah.
sometimes, but also it can be like used for a really great thing as well. And I've met so many cool people through social media, and it's like just reach out to people who are, you know, who you think are cool, and then
Yeah.
you become friends.
Hmm.
That's like cool. 99% of the time it works out.
Yeah. Exactly. Um, I I kind of want to go a little bit back because I want to ask you because it's so different now. Like when you first started out, how did you feel like you could keep going? Was it just the fact that you had like your brother with you or Like, did Jai just like
Yeah.
make you feel accepted? Like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely having a big brother is
Uh-huh.
like it increases your confidence a lot because it's like you can't mess with me because my big brother will beat you up.
Yeah.
But I think also like I grew up in a really white area and all my friends for the most part were guys just because of the activities that I like to do. And so um um I think I just always kind of like made a way for myself. I had, my guy friends and I had, I was in with the cool kids enough
Yeah.
that like, I had my people around me and it wasn't even really until my adulthood that I realized like, oh, I hang out with a bunch of white men. Like, is this weird? No. I mean, they're cool. I like
Yeah.
them. They're fun to hang out with. But then it's like once you start hanging out with other people, then you're like, oh,
Yeah.
well, maybe some of the things that they said to me, it was funny at the time, but thinking back at it, that was actually super problematic and racist. And
Yes.
like, there was like, I used to play, this is like a great example. I used to play paintball um, with a crew of like older guys, and like, they're awesome. And like, no shade on them or whatever, but like, my nickname was Al Qaeda.
Oh.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, it's funny. Like, whatever. Everyone
Mhm.
thought it was funny. But then, like, thinking back, I'm like, that's like,
Not okay.
that's,
Yeah.
that's not really okay. And like, the fact that everyone just called me that because I was like really good at paintballing and I shot everyone. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, like, I don't know. It's just like, it's stuff like that. And like, you don't, it, I mean, when I was younger, there was a lot of weird things that were accepted, like calling each other gay and like being,
Mhm.
like that
Yeah.
was just kind of the way people interacted with each other. And
Yeah.
like, you know, now we know better
Hmm.
and, they know better too.
Yeah.
So it's fine. It's fine if you screw up once. It's like once you know better, then you can do better.
Yep.
And, I'm not perfect either. And it's like, because I am mixed, I think I can code switch and I can identify with like more whiteness if I need to,
Mhm.
and I can fit into those spaces. I know how to talk. I know how to be. I know how to act. I know how to be a white person, and I think it's really actually been a journey of me learning how to be a person of color in the
Yeah.
last like few years because it's like, oh, I didn't really know about a lot of this
Mhm.
stuff until really like I started to get into activism. And
Mhm.
then you start to learn all this stuff and like see, kind of open your eyes to it. And then, you know, then you can really be yourself.
Mhm.
It's like, I don't even know that I'm switching when I'm doing it. And then when you get around people who you don't have to do that for, it's like, oh, there's a huge piece of me that I was holding back and didn't even know. So it's been, it's been a learning experience for me too.
Yeah. I mean, and you're also like in a field where you're coming across a lot of different people in your work, every
Mm-hmm.
day, um, kind of having to deal with who comes in the door. Obviously, you can say, I'm not treating you. You could leave.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how, I guess, how do you manage that situation too? Are you like just do you feel I know my sister's also a doctor and obviously she's white, but like well that's not obvious I suppose, but um she is white. Um but like I do recall like when she looks younger and I know that when she was treating people, she would like get like, oh, when's the doctor coming in kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that the people that she went to school with similarly had some issues with that. Have you had any direct instances with that? And like, how do you deal with that? I mean, that really is like a sucky
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah, I haven't had to deal with that a lot.
Mhm.
I think because I'm in naturopathic medicine or like in natural health, people assume that it's going to be a woman. I think it's like if you're a man, you're kind of out of place in that world.
Yeah.
And then also, Asian medicine is like, I'm South Asian. I'm not
Mhm.
East Asian, but it's like I think people coming in to get that experience already come in expecting to see someone that's not like what they traditionally would
Mhm.
expect at a doctor. Um, and it's like, when people come in to see me, they're coming in to, you know, it doesn't matter what their values are, who they
Mhm.
are outside of my office. Like they come in because they need help, and
Mhm.
the the way that I can help them is by healing them. And
Mhm.
like, you know, a lot of people that are, I guess, you know, I feel like obviously there are some people who are just like evil, horrible people, but a
Yeah.
lot of people they don't want to be that way. They're doing it, they're like that because they don't really know better, or
Mhm.
they're hurt, they're a hurt person.
Yeah.
And like, because I can heal people without really digging into their who they are, or like having long conversations. Like I don't need to know anything really about your life. Like I just
Really.
come
Yeah.
in, I feel your pulse, I look at who you are, I can, within 15 minutes, I know how to treat you. And just
Mhm.
by bringing that, like, a lot of people are just mean because they're in pain, honestly, too.
Yeah.
So it's like,
You're not
like
wrong.
I'm like, I get it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I would be an asshole too if I
Yeah.
was in like your situation right now. So
Yeah.
like the way that I can show up for those people
Yeah.
is to heal them. And
Mhm.
the way I kind of think about it is every interaction that I have with someone, I just hope that they will use that and become a better person. Like
Mhm.
I'm not trying to like cancel people and tell them what to do. I genuinely want people to be better
Yeah.
and healthier, and spread that to the people around them too.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
You were,
no
yeah, that's
judgment.
no, no. I mean, you were
Yeah.
Seattle Mets, like, what is it? Number one doctor
Yeah.
of
Seattle Met
2023
top
for,
dot
yeah.
2 years in a 2 years in a
Yeah.
row.
That's awesome. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you're doing the right things, and people, you vote you up there for a reason. You're great. We usually end with a question for all of our guests, and then that's like, what words of empowerment would you give to like a younger version of yourself, or somebody who's just starting out, or somebody who's been at it for a while and just needs some encouragement? Like, what words of empowerment would you give them?
I think it's so important finding your people and finding your community. And that's, like I said earlier, it's so we have the ability to do that now with social media, and, looking at your local groups and being like, there's a lot of resources now, for um, people who want to do different activities, right? It's like you can find a group for that. You can find like-minded people, and um, I think that's so important to create that community. Or if you can't find that person, like convince one of your friends to go do it with you. Like that, having that support and building that community with each other is like, it's so empowering for you, but also for them. And you just can feed off each other. And it's like, I always say, like, start a gang, get your people together, and just go do what you want to do. Because, when we have that, um, community, and we're just stronger. And I think that in every aspect of life, it's like, talk to each other, reach out to each other, reach out to me, hit me up. You know, the worst someone can say is no, right? And it's like, I think more times than not, you'll find that the person you reach out to has the same experience as you, and also is wanting that connection. So I think that's something that I've really noticed in people. It's like you find your people, and then you can, take on the world together. And snowboarding especially is And skiing too, it's like it can be such an individual sport.
Mhm.
Um, but I just think there's so much power in like in building community and having and supporting each other. And that goes both ways, like supporting, like giving people the support that you would want. And then, together we're stronger.
Dang, I want to put take on the world together on a shirt, and that's a great
Yeah.
great slogan. And yeah, stronger together for sure. Um,
Yeah, fight for each other and every part of the and every part of your life.
mhm.
Like we gotta do this together.
Awesome. So if people want to follow your journey or check you out for acupuncture, where could they go to do that?
Yeah, so I do a lot on Instagram. So my Instagram is Khai Ann. It's Khaiann. And then I also have the Change Collective Instagram, which is also linked on my personal one, and that's the.change.collective. And then for acupuncture, my business is called Foxglove Acupuncture. And my website is foxgloveacu.com. I work at an integrative clinic in Ballard in Seattle, Washington called Rebel Med Northwest. And yeah, so you can find me either online or on social media.
You can follow me personally. That's at Jacalyn Gross, JACALYNGROSS. You can check out You Are Sportswear. That's the letter U, the letter R, Sportswear on all social platforms. And you can shop our products at youaresportswear.com. If you are listening to this and want to watch the video version, you can go to You Are Sportswear's YouTube channel and check us out. Both the audio and video version of this podcast was produced by Jeremy Canaria and edited by me. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much, Khai.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for doing this.